Just give the gentleman 2 minutes to sit. Welcome everybody. Today we are going to talk a little bit about OT security. OT security is obviously something that's actually becoming quite important for at least companies with production lines, for critical infrastructure. But before I go into the presentation, just tell you a little bit who is the crazy guy standing up here presenting in front of you. My name is Ditlev, Danish guy, live in Amsterdam. I've been working within the security business now for several years, both in network and in cloud. And now I'm focusing 100% on OT. And I really chose to look into OT because I see we are lagging extremely behind on that part. There's a lot of education going on. There's a lot of companies that need to understand what to do. There are not many resources in the market. So really I spend all my time evangelizing, helping larger companies to understand what are the possibilities to start protecting your OT network. Oop. If we look a little bit about why is this OT security all of a sudden a thing? Well, it really comes down to the digital transformation, right? We are starting to connect everything that we have. Before, OT was completely isolated, it was air-gapped. If you had a lock on the door, that was enough. Now you have to think about, with the digitalization, we are connecting IT and OT more and more, and we do that to make sure that we get data. The business wants data so they can make informed decisions, right? We also want to make sure that the production is very efficient, so we start automating a lot. The more that we can automate, the more we can become Industry 4.0 ready, the better it is for the company. So basically the digitalization is the key driver for connecting your IT with your OT. Now I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with OT, but basically what you see here on the screens, these big machines, they're the computers for the guys on the shop floor. So when you're sitting with the laptop, they're sitting with these huge, gigantic machines that you see in the production, that you see in a water plant, in any utility company providing water, heat, all these kind of things. And it's extremely important to understand when you go on an OT security journey, you are moving outside of the IT environment. You are not able anymore just to use the same strategies or the same tooling. You can try to use the same tools, but probably you will realize at the time that was not the right option. If I ask you to use OT security to protect your cloud, you will probably say I'm nuts. But somehow, using IT solutions in the OT environment is still okay. And I must say some are getting better at it, but it's extremely important that you think about IT for IT, OT for OT. There are not many solutions out there yet, but there are starting to be some good ones with visibility, some detection. And what we are trying to show people is that you can actually go in and start protecting your OT just as well as you are protecting your IT. So we are now talking about critical assets that you can actually go in and do blocking. You can go in and do endpoint protection. You can do things that sound more familiar to us, but it needs to be prepared for the OT environment. One of the challenges that we see, and that you probably also will realize if you didn't start it, if you already started it, you probably already saw it, but there are quite a few stakeholders in this journey, and they have very different priorities. So the people on the shop floor, they basically do not want you to touch their machines for any reason whatsoever. It has to run 24/7. For them, that's all that matters. The security part was never needed before, and they don't want you to start messing around with it. Then you have the IT teams, which are being told by the CISO, hey, I got OT, you got to start protecting that stuff because I'm personally responsible according to this too. So I'm starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable here. And they're walking down with their IT eyes, using the strategies and the tools that they've been successful with in an IT, which is very normal. But it's very important that we manage to take these different stakeholders and basically put them in a room, because there are solutions out there that can give you the protection that the IT team wants, that doesn't affect the production, which the shop floor people want. And at the end of the day, the leadership gets the data that they want and they get the protection that they want. So there are solutions out there on the market that can help you with this. Now, if we look at why is IT all of a, why is OT all of a sudden, why do we need that protection? Well, we know we are connecting it, right, with IT and OT, but the funny thing is, if I would say, probably all of you protect your endpoints in IT. I'm quite sure. Your IT infrastructure is your most important thing. We don't want our data to go out. We protect our cloud, we protect our emails, we protect everything we have in IT. But when you look at OT, which is the heart of the business, if the production is not up and running, you're not making any money. So your IT doesn't matter, your employees basically doesn't matter, and you're fighting for survival. So it is extremely rare, or it is funny, you can say, that only 6% of organizations actually protect their OT endpoints. That's crazy, but that's where we are. If you get hit in your IT and you have done nothing yet to at least try to take the first step and segment IT and OT domains, and you get hacked in your IT, you gotta fast track down to your OT. And this is really, really a big issue. So if you're doing the digital transformation, be sure that at least you take that first step and slam a firewall in or something like that. But also know that that is just the beginning. If you need to protect your OT, you need to think about a layered approach. You need to make sure that when you're, let me see if that comes now. Well, no, let me wait with that. You need to make sure when you're under the DMZ zone, you have several layers. Those you need to protect. So a firewall is not enough. If we look at the use cases, which might give you a little bit an idea about why is it that our OT is vulnerable. Now these are the 4 major cornerstones that I see every company struggling with today. If you look at the top one, which third-party maintenance is a really, really big one. That means that people from outside, external people, they basically walk directly into your OT with their own devices to do maintenance on the machines. Do you have any process to check the devices that they're bringing in? USB sticks, removable media, their laptops? At least some kind of control point to see what's happening, right? If not, you're basically letting people just walk into the core of your OT without checking anything. And you can have firewalls up, you can do all kinds of protection in your OT, but these guys are circumventing it all and connecting directly to the machine. So that's a big one. Another thing is that companies, when they get new machines that they actually install in their production lines, almost nobody even checks the machine before they install it. Which I understand, because when I get a new computer, I think it's safe, right? It's brand new, it's coming from the supplier, nobody touched it, at least, but somehow everything is already prepared for me. But I don't check that, but I should. Now companies, production companies and critical infrastructure companies, they don't check the machines either. And if you get a new machine in for the supplier, you install it without checking it, and you have a network that's not segmented in the OT layer, everything will go down, right? So there's a lot of use cases that really represents a big danger for the OT. We're just not really there yet to start understanding what to do with it. But the segmentation of the network in the OT layer, so not IT and OT, but down in the OT layers, that's important. Patching is also something that almost all companies with production, they struggle with. We have a brewery, now I'm Danish, I work with a Danish company that is a brewery. They have, if any, one maintenance window a year. Which means, if a new patch comes out, they might have 9 months before, 10 months, 6 months before they actually have a window, if they have that window. Which means that's a period of time where you are vulnerable, because you are not able to do the patch. Which means you need some kind of security that protects you in that period of time. When you have the patch, when you have the service window, of course you do it. But then you can jump over to the legacy part. All the machines that you have a lot of XP out there, you even have .NET, you have Windows 7. Microsoft don't do anything with it anymore. Most security vendors, they follow the hyperscalers, so why should we invest in it if Microsoft doesn't invest in it? But when you buy a machine for a production for 10, 20, 30 million, it has to be there for the next 30 to 50 years. So even if you buy a new machine with Windows 11, which is great, in 3 years, Microsoft will say, yeah, it's legacy, we don't deliver updates anymore for it. It's legacy for you, but it's going to stand there for the next 20 years. So it's important that when you think about security, that you have a long-term vision on how you're going to handle it. Because you are not going to be changing like in IT every 3 to 5 years. These machines are here for a very long time. Now speaking about legacy, which is basically what I see the number one problem for companies. And if you look at, this is in the low under the IT boundary, that is where you see all the legacy, and that's the number one problem that people have to protect. Because these big machines with an XP, they don't have any CPU, they don't have any power, they don't have any memory, so you can't just install any endpoint on it, because then it would crash, right? The idea is, this is the Purdue model. So not our model, but the Purdue model, if you're familiar with it. If you're not, have a look at it. It can give you a lot of insights. But the idea is that for every level in the OT layer, so the lower layers, that requires its own method and its own type of protection. And if you really want to protect your OT like you're doing with your IT, you will be looking at each level, making sure that you're protecting the different layers in there. But you also have to compare that with your risk appetite. You may have a factory standing somewhere where even if it burns down, you will say, okay, that's a shame, but it doesn't really hurt us. You need to identify which of your sites are the critical ones, the most important ones, and the rest you can kind of say, okay, if something happens, we can handle that. It's not great, but we can survive. But I may have 10 sites. If they go down, and for 3 weeks I can't produce, then I have a huge issue, right? So, legacy, which I mentioned was the big one, there's something really, really interesting going on in the market at the moment. So, if you want to install something on your machines, Siemens will tell you, well, that's fine, but your warranty is gone. And the same goes for a lot of other vendors that are delivering, or suppliers delivering those machines. So the customers today, they're standing there saying, but okay, do you then protect your machines? If you don't let me protect them, are you going to do it? And they say, no, we're not going to invest in that. That's your problem. Yeah, but I got NIS2 breathing down my neck, says I have to protect it, and you're saying I'm not allowed to do it. So what do? Well, first of all, you come and talk to me. No, joke aside. You have to realize you will have the question with the right to install something or not. And there are different methods that you can use. You can look, are they certified by Siemens? Are they certified by ABB? All those kind of things. To be honest, those kind of certification don't really matter a lot. It may do for the checkbox. But if I give you TXOne 1.0, Siemens, they check it, it's all great. As soon as I release 1.1, Siemens has to do the whole thing over again, and they don't. So what they're saying to you that this is certified please have a look also when it was certified, and then have that conversation both with the security company and the vendor itself, like Siemens. But if it has been certified once from Siemens, you can at least, with a good, how do you say that, you can at least think that this is okay, right? Because Siemens has tested it, it works, and it may be a new version, but it should still be okay. But that's an indicator for you that you're going in the right direction. If you are not able to install anything on it, or you don't dare to take up the fight, there are other ideas you can do. You can basically use an edge device and fence in the machines, one way or the other. It has to be something that understands the protocols that you have in your environment, whether it's Mitsubishi, Siemens, ABB, what kind of protocol, Profinet, Siemens 7, what are we working with? You put that in and it can protect down to the command level what you are allowed to do. And think about OT being very static, right? So you can actually better achieve a OT zero trust, that you can better get the OT, or get the zero trust in OT than in IT. IT is very dynamic. You got cloud, serverless, people, and we're doing crazy stuff. But in OT it's very simple. There's one machine talking to another, and it goes like this. So I can easily say that this machine can do this, and I can filter that this is the way it goes, and only the way it goes. Nothing else is allowed. Maybe I can increase the speed or turn down the speed, but I cannot stop it. So that is one way of starting to fencing it in, and then you can use tools. So if somebody walks around and come in and uses that particular machine and connects to the machine, you can scan the machine without actually installing something on it, which is what this little stick is for here. That's an example of a tool where you can scan the asset in the OT without installing anything. So you have two ways of securing it. If you have 5,000 machines, that stick is not going to be great. But it is a way for the most critical assets where you don't want to install anything, where you might even have an edge device in but only do monitoring because you're not ready to block anything just yet, right? That could be a way to at least check if everything is okay without installing anything. And then if somebody has been in and touching with it, you have that one covered as well. So I would like to give you a little bit the story of one of the customers that I'm working with in the Netherlands. It is security, so I'm not allowed to give their name. But if somebody wants to talk to them, that can be arranged. So we have a global company in the Netherlands within the semiconductor industry. And they have many factories. And their machines are extremely expensive. The machines that they build and they sell cost 200 million euros. So no, they're not going to be changed every 3 to 5 years, as an example. Now, they knew that they had to do something with OT. So they basically did their risk analysis, which is very important that you do that, because you need to decide what is acceptable to you as a company, right? You need to decide what is your risk appetite. When you've done that, and in this case, this particular company, they could not accept that everything that was end of life, from a Windows perspective, that is unprotected. It was simply, for them, too important to not protect it. And even if they did all the layered approaches and put everything up that they could in front or in the network, they were still of the opinion that an endpoint solution had to be installed on these old machines. And so they did, and they started out with for 2 years ago, with something that everybody else also did. They took the IT solution that they're using for their IT endpoint and expanded that into their OT, right? Makes sense, we have good agreements, we get just more licenses, we get it for cheap. But what they came to realize is that when it doesn't understand the OT applications, you're going to have problems within your OT. Now, if you start having problems, and whether it's latency or false positives or anything happens, you have the people on the shop floor chasing you. And you will never get a chance to install anything again if that happens, right? So it's really important that you, first of all, that you bring these guys in. Now, in this case, they stopped everything that they were doing, and they spent 2 years on it. A lot of money out the window. But they learned from it, and then they tried to do it with an endpoint that was actually created to understand the OT environment. And when they did that, they found out it doesn't have to be that difficult and complex. We can actually do everything that we want to do, and we can implement it relatively fast. So they managed to do 4 factories in a year, which I think is pretty awesome, because I've seen it. I have seen 1 factory in 1.5 years, right? So it goes really, really slow to get this opportunity. So the fact that they've done that in 1 year shows that they really want to do it, and they found the right solution to do it as well. Oh yeah, and another funny part was that all the legacy machines that they were trying to protect, they actually did find malware on it, which also helped the cause when we worked with them, that they saw this is something that we do need. We cannot not do it anymore. Then we are actually basically at the end of it, but I would like to give you some ideas or recommendations for reading. So on our website, we have something around NIS2, where we try to map solutions to the requirements. And don't think because you work with us, you're going to be all perfect and blue and nice. But you can use solutions, technical solutions, to cover some of these areas. And the same thing if you have a production environment, the IEC 62334, or 443, sorry. We also have done the same with that. Then I would recommend you also to look at Sector CERT, which is a Danish organization that is having sensors in all of Denmark to look at the OT environment, all critical infrastructure. And they basically made a report because last year there was a patch from Sixel that a lot of companies did not do. They did not do this patch. And 22 sites were hacked because of this, which in Denmark is the biggest hack in history. And they made a complete report on what was done, how they did it, which recommendations they also have, so you don't only have to listen to me, but they have a really good report to read. And then finally, we have a lot of alliances with big vendors like Schneider, Valmet, Mitsubishi, and Schneider Electric, they have on YouTube, they have a video, but they also made a white paper where they actually go in and explain how to add prevention in a SCADA system. That can be done, and you can prevent, and you can protect. You don't have to just monitor. You don't have to detect and react. It can be, for some critical assets, that's the way you want to go. Perfectly fine. But if you want to take it a step further and do what we call actual protection, not the visibility part, that can be done, and they explain the difference between an IT firewall, an OT firewall, and then what we are doing, because it's a kind of different approach with an edge IPS down in the deep layers. So that's a very good reading as well. If you want the information, you can send me an email. You can get the presentation, no problem. You can Google it as well, it's not too difficult to find, so you don't have to give me your email. But basically that's it. I hope that gave you a little bit of insights and valuable tips and tricks. I'm at the HSD Pavilion, so if you want to talk a little bit, come understand more, or give some ideas to me about what you're thinking, you're most welcome. Yeah? Thank you.